The world worships size. Tall towers, loud voices, massive armies, explosions that shake the sky, and heroes who cast shadows across cities. But the universe does not run on what is large. It runs on what is small. Atoms hum with invisible energy. Ants lift 10 times their weight without applause. Cells divide, silently creating life while empires collapse above them. And somewhere between the spaces no one notices, between seconds, between atoms, between failures and second chances, man was about to become something impossible. Not bigger. Smaller. Chapter 1. Scott Lang was not a bad man. Scott Lang had made mistakes. Plenty of them, but he wasn't a villain. He wasn't cruel. He didn't hurt people for fun. He didn't dream of power or domination or world-ending machines. He just wanted to provide for his daughter. That desire had landed him in prison. Now, 3 years later, Scott stood outside the concrete walls of San Quentin, a cardboard box of belongings in his hands and sunlight burning his eyes. Freedom felt fragile like glass that could shatter at the slightest wrong move. "Don't mess this up," he muttered to himself. The world had moved on without him. Smartphones were faster, cars quieter, people colder, jobs scarcer. And Cassie, his little girl, wasn't so little anymore. When Scott saw her for the first time after his release, standing behind her mother's legs with cautious hope in her eyes, something in his chest cracked open. He promised her everything, a better life, a clean future. No more disappointments. He meant every word. But the world doesn't care about promises. Chapter 2. The man in the house on the hill, Hank Pym, had spent decades erasing himself from history. Once, his name had meant brilliance, quantum theory. Rewritten, physics bent into new shapes. Entire sciences born from his equations. Then the government had come, knocking. They wanted his work. They wanted his technology. And Hank had learned a terrible truth. Powerful men should never be trusted with tools that rewrite reality. So he disappeared. Now he lived alone in a house that looked abandoned, watched over by cameras no one could see, surrounded by secrets no one could imagine. And he was waiting. Hank didn't believe in accidents. When Scott Lang broke into his home, bypassing security systems that shouldn't have been hackable, Hank smiled for the first time in years. "Yes," he whispered. "You'll do." Chapter 3. The suit. The suit was old. Red and black plating, scarred by battles Scott couldn't imagine. A helmet that folded like a living thing. Controls built from alien-looking components humming with restrained power. "What is this?" Scott asked. Hank's eyes were sharp, measuring, testing. "It's a door," Hank said, "to places no human was meant to go." Scott laughed nervously. "You're gonna have to be more specific." "It shrinks you." Scott stopped laughing. Hank explained the science. Not all of it, never all of it. Pym particles, space between atoms. Compression without loss of mass. A miracle wrapped in equations and danger. "And if something goes wrong?" Scott asked. Hank didn't lie. "You might not come back." Scott thought of Cassie. Then he nodded. Chapter 4. Becoming Ant-Man. The first time Scott shrank, the world exploded. Sound vanished. Colors sharpened into impossible clarity. Dust became boulders. Carpet. Fibers turned into forests. The air felt thick, electric, alive. Scott panicked. He fell, and fell, and fell until he slammed into the floor like a meteor no one could see. Breathing hard, heart racing, Scott realized something terrifying. He wasn't small. The world was huge. When he grew back to full-size moments later, collapsing in a heap, Hank helped him up. "Again," Hank said. And again. And again. Scott trained until exhaustion blurred into instinct. Learned to fight while tiny. To leap impossible distances. To ride ants like living vehicles, guided by frequencies only the suit could translate. He learned discipline. Control. Responsibility. Because power without control wasn't heroism. It was disaster. Chapter 5. The enemy in the shadows. Darren Cross had once been Hank Pym's protege. Now he was his greatest mistake. Cross had stolen fragments of Hank's research and twisted it into something cruel, a suit of his own. Unstable and violent, designed for warfare rather than protection. Where Hank saw balance, Cross saw profit. Where Hank feared misuse, Cross craved control. The Yellow Jacket project was nearing completion, and once it was unleashed, The world would never be the same. This isn't about revenge, Hank told Scott. It's about containment. Scott understood. Some things couldn't be allowed to exist. Chapter 6. A Father's Promise. Cassie believed her father was a hero, not because he wore a suit, but because he showed up. Scott fixed her toys, walked her to school, listened when she talked about ants in the backyard and how they work together without fighting. They're like a team, she said. Scott smiled. He didn't tell her he led one. Every mission was a lie wrapped in love. Every bruise a secret. Every risk a gamble with the only thing that mattered. Chapter 7. The heist that changed everything. Breaking into Cross Technologies was like walking into a lion's mouth. Security drones patrolled gleaming hallways. Laser grids hummed with lethal precision. One wrong move meant death. Scott shrank, slipped through cracks, rode ants through ventilation shafts, fought guards who never knew what hit them. But Darren Cross was waiting. The yellow jacket suit descended like a nightmare, sleek, predatory, unstable. You think being small makes you special? Cross sneered. I can go smaller. The battle shattered walls, labs, and illusions. They fell, and fell, and fell through atoms. Into the quantum realm. Chapter 8. The quantum realm. Time stopped meaning anything. Space folded in on itself. Reality became a storm of light and memory. Scott saw fragments of his life, Cassie laughing, prison bars closing, Hank's warning, ants marching in perfect unity. He was dissolving, becoming less than nothing. Then he remembered something Hank had said. Ants survive because they never stop moving forward. Scott focused. Pushed. Fought. And somehow against physics, against fate, he returned. Chapter 9. The end of Yellow Jacket. Scott emerged inside Cross's suit, a man fighting a god from within. He destroyed power conduits, overloaded systems, sabotaged. From the inside out, Yellow Jacket collapsed. Darren Cross vanished, lost to a realm too small to forgive arrogance. The danger ended, but the cost lingered. Chapter 10. Legacy. Hank watched Scott walk away from the suit, not abandoning it, but respecting it. You did good, Hank said quietly. No, Scott replied. We did. Cassie hugged him later that night, unaware of how close she'd come to losing him. You're my hero, she said. Scott smiled, eyes wet. Maybe the world would never know his name. Maybe statues would never be built. But somewhere, between atoms, between moments, a man had proven something vital. That heroism isn't about size. It's about heart. Epilogue. The smallest hero. The universe is vast. Threats loom beyond stars, gods clash, titans rise. And when they do, there will be a hero ready. Not towering. Not thunderous. But precise. Relentless. Unseen. Ant-Man.